All right, this is the beginning of a series for a drag build, for a drag car build based on a Traxxas platform. If you have seen some of the other series, for example, the Bandit teardown series, this is a front end off of a Bandit as well as the rear end off of a Bandit. The bulkhead has already been upgraded to an RPM bulkhead, and the rear carriers as well to RPM. Everything else was left as is. That shock will be removed. Something else that you're going to need other than the front and the rear end off of a Rustler is just a chassis. So this is the LCG chassis off of a donor slash. So this is a slash 2-wheel drive chassis, and it was a VXL model, which is why it comes with the different steering bell crank. As you can see here, the servo savers built into it compared to the non-VXL, which would have something similar to this Bandit bell crank. These tend to snap right here. They're actually not the strongest. Now, I'll be honest, this is a drag car. You don't really need much steering. So even that servo that's already installed in there, Savox servo, this is overkill for a drag car. Just use the stock servo. Even though it's plastic gears on the stock one, there's a servo saver built in there. It is possible to break the stock servo even with that servo saver, but it takes a really hard impact, and likelihood of that happening in a drag car is pretty low. But this is the way this was, again, from a donor. So the way it works is this is a separate plate. It just screws there, there, and there. You would remove the plate, and then all the components just sit in there. Servo screws on there. You want this to be perpendicular to the ground when you set it up. So instead of adjusting your steering trim, just take this off and adjust this. You want your steering to be in the neutral position, this to be straight up as possible. And then go from there. Then once you get it close enough, then dial in the steering trim. But for this one, we're going to focus on the front end first without the shocks for now. Because the shocks you want to do at the end, although I will be removing this to make it easy. The first thing that you also want from your donor slash is you want to take the turnbuckles from the steering. And the reason why, even though you're going to be using the turnbuckles from the Bandit just because of the length, you're going to want to use the little bells that are in here. And the reason why is if you're using the VXL steering bell crank, it's a different setup than the one that comes on the Bandit, and that is the reason why. So the one that comes in the Bandit, it doesn't really matter what you use. And the reason for that is because the turnbuckles are just going to slide in, and then there's going to be a nut. Right? So these are a little thinner, as you can see, compared to these rear ones. So the Bandit uses these wider ones because it doesn't matter. But on this bell crank, off of the VXL slash, these are too big. They won't slide in with these. So you're going to want to swap these out. These will slide in. So you're going to need some pliers first. And for these, as always, use quality tools. You can use a variety of pliers. I'm just going to use these here off of a set. Again, this set I bought at Lowe's. They're similar sets made by Craftsman, Husky. I'm not promoting the Cobalt brand. They just happen to be $15, and they're very good quality for the purposes of our seeing. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but anyway, you're going to be popping these out, and then these little barrels out. So what you do is you kind of put the plier here on the plastic on this side, and then you push on the metal part, and you kind of twist. Once this little barrel is out, I'm just going to set it aside. I'm going to grab the other one, and I'm going to repeat the process. Again, this part of the plier on the plastic, this on the metal, and then you just kind of twist. So you do this little motion, and they'll pop right out. So these you're no longer going to need. These are the ones from the slash. So put those aside. Now you need to pop the ones off of the turnbuckles that you're actually going to use. So these are the big ones. Now this flat side, this is a lot wider, so you don't want to pop this one going the other way. You actually want to go this way. So you want to go, you want to try to push the small end, not the large end. And then you pop that out. Once you pop that out, just set it aside. You know, keep those, you can use those for other parts. But anyway, just grab the other little barrel here, stick it in there, and then you do the opposite. You now put the plier on the plastic on the end where you want to drive it toward. Right, so you want to drive it this way. So this side is going to be touching the plastic, this side is going to be touching the metal. And then you just do that, and that's it. It'll just pop into place. Pretty straightforward. You just remove the two of them and then pop the second one in. If you do not do this and you try just wedging it into place in here in the bell crank, it's going to be super, super tight and it's going to force those things open. It's just not going to sit right. So I recommend you just replace them, especially if you have a donor. If you don't have a donor, you're going to have to purchase those parts separately. Now at this point, move the bell crank out like this, right? Whatever end you're working on. If I were working on the other side, I would move it this way. I'm going to be working on the right side. That's the right side of the vehicle. So orientation, this thing is going to just slide in there. And once it's in here, you just grab your screw and you just line it up and it should go right in. And then you just tighten. I always mention this, I like to hand tighten everything. Some people do use power tools. I prefer to just feel it by hand. It's preference, but do not over tighten. You will destroy the plastic. And that is it. You don't need it to be too tight. The plastic works as a thread lock in a way. So now you grab the other end and you do the same thing. You want to have it kind of flat, and then it'll slide right in. And then here goes the screw. So if they don't slide right in, you probably have the larger ones and you're going to have to replace them. Unless you want to use the other bell crank, which is the white plastic one, you can do that and then just skip this whole step. Or you could even get the Traxxas aluminum one. The Traxxas aluminum is actually really good. I like that one. But there's no servo saver, so then you would have to have a servo saver on the servo, which I do not like. But again, it's a drag car. It's not, steering's not gonna matter as much. So once you have this, one of the things that you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to twist and kind of slide this in and then bring it in. So again, you twist the chassis. See how this is twisted? Slide this in and then twist again, and then just pop this into place. And that is all. So my front end is on, not secured yet. So now I have to use my screws for the front. I'm gonna use these 3. And these here, whereas these used a 2mm driver, these are gonna use a 2.5. So as I'm tightening, I'm gonna hold this together. Try to hold it more toward the edges. If you hold it toward the middle, you may end up breaking that brace. And there's different ways of holding it too. If you want to, I mean, you could even just hold in the palm of your hand, do something like this, but it depends on how big your hands are. If they're large enough, do it. If they're not, well, you're gonna have to get a little creative. I generally like putting in the center first, but I do not drive it all the way. I actually keep it about, that's about 1 millimeter off. And then I'll do the other 2 just to line them up. And once you do that, you do it this way. Now, I'm not setting this on the table. So if you're thinking, why did you set it on the table? The reason why is I'm gonna hit the shock tower and see I'm gonna bend it. So the hole is like this. And then as I set it, the hole's gonna do this. So the screw's gonna go in crooked. I don't really want that. So the screws here, they're going in straight. once everything is straight, it doesn't really take that much force or balancing to get things buttoned up, to be honest. Things just want to fall into place. That's really the way things work. So at this point, I'm going to start tightening. Once I get closer, then notice there's still some play left and right. I'm going to just get it closer. These are countersink, so they will line each other up. I just don't want to tighten one first and then the rest, so I'm kind of just skipping. There we go. Now I'm going to go to the other outer one. And then the outer one. That one's good. Again, do not over tighten. You will damage the plastic. Here we go. So those three are now set. Now if I want to, I could put the slash bumper on there. I'm not going to, and the reason why is I'm just going to put the stock bumper back on, which is this one, off of the Bandit. And one of the reasons why is I don't feel like cutting the other bumper now, but I'm actually going to leave this off for now. I may change my mind, but I'm probably going to end up just putting that one there. The reason why you would want to go with the slash bumper and maybe trim it down is to help the body. So if you do crash, that way the body doesn't compress all the way over here and then you bend the body, break the body. So you may want to have that longer bumper. But like I said, for now, this is the goal here. So now I just need these two top screws right in there. Now, those are very important. So you do want to have screws on that top portion. And again, it's going to be a 2.5mm size screw. For this one here, we're just going to use these countersinks because this is what we have. Oops, sorry, that's a 2mm. Don't want to do that. 2.5mm because that's what we have. But here it would not be countersink screws, but you know, they work. They work. That's it. All right, we are good to go. And that's it. So this is on. Right now there are no shocks on the vehicle, but we've mounted the front end. All we have to do is mount the front shock tower, which we will wait. You can use the factory slash tower. Actually, this goes this way here, and then just adjust the height, or you can get the adjustable body mounts. It's just two screws. They mount right here in the back. If you're gonna have the adjustable one, I recommend you mount this onto this first. And the reason why is just the angle of the driver. That way you're not hitting this. But because I haven't decided which one I'm going to use, I want to reuse this one, to be honest. I'm going to do that. But I have to see the body first. So we're just going to do the basic car. We'll worry about mounting the body at a different time. But this is the basics for the front end without the shocks for now, and without a bumper. Once you add a bumper, again, you would just have 4 screws for the slash bumper or 2 screws for the Bandit bumper. And that is it. Thank you very much for watching. The next video, we're going to work on the rear. Go ahead, like, dislike, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Thank you very much.